Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we delve into a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is January 11th. On this day in 1992, 12-year-old Shanda Sharer was brutally murdered in a crime that shocked the nation. The case involving 4 teenage girls revealed an almost unbelievable story of jealousy, manipulation, and rage. Today, we're going to talk about the events leading up to Shanda's death, the investigation that followed, and the trials that sought to bring justice to a devastated family. Let's get started. Shanda Sharer was a bright, lively 12-year-old who had recently moved to New Albany, Indiana. Known for her bubbly personality, she was settling into her new school and forming friendships. Among them was Amanda Heavrin, a 15-year-old who had previously been in a romantic relationship with 16-year-old Melinda Lovelace. Shanda was just a 12-year-old girl trying to make friends in a new school, and she never could have imagined that this connection would end up setting off a chain of events that would lead to her death. Melinda was overcome with jealousy and anger over Amanda's relationship with Shanda, and she began plotting against the younger girl. Melinda repeatedly expressed her hatred for Shanda to her friends, even threatening to harm her. But these weren't just catty comments from a teenage girl. They were the beginnings of a plan. And on January 10th, 1992, Melinda set that plan into motion. She enlisted 3 other girls, 17-year-old Lori Tackett, 15-year-old Hope Rippey, and 15-year-old Tony Lawrence to help carry out her scheme. The group drove to Shanda's house late at night and convinced her to come with them, claiming that Amanda wanted to meet with her. Shanda, just again being 12 years old and naive, trusted their story and willingly went along. What followed was a night of unimaginable cruelty. The group drove Shanda to a remote location where Melinda and Lori began tormenting her. They beat her, taunted her, and even brandished a knife to frighten her. Over the course of several hours, Shanda endured unimaginable torture. The group ultimately took her to a secluded area where they doused her in gasoline and set her on fire. Shanda was still alive when the fire was lit. The following morning, a hunter discovered Shanda's charred remains in a rural area near Madison, Indiana. Her body was so badly burned that authorities initially had difficulty identifying her. They ultimately had to resort to using her dental records in order to make a positive identification. Shanda's body was discovered on the morning of January 11th, 1992, and the investigation began immediately. The gruesome scene left investigators determined to find answers. Shanda had been reported missing, and detectives were able to quickly get her dental records to make that identification. And after that, the search for her killers intensified. Now, the crime itself was horrific, but it wasn't well thought out, and these girls were far from criminal masterminds. As the investigation began, the people involved quickly became apparent to investigators. Tony Lawrence, who was said to have been the least involved of the group, was still overcome with guilt and confided in a friend about what had happened. With that friend's encouragement, she ended up going to the police on January 12th and confessed. And this was just one day after Shanda's body was found. Her account provided a detailed timeline of the events and named Melinda, Lori, and Hope as her accomplices. This confession gave the investigators the breakthrough that they needed in order to make arrests. Police quickly apprehended Melinda, Lori, and Hope. During questioning, Melinda displayed no remorse, coldly justifying her actions by blaming Shanda for coming between her and Amanda. Lori also recounted the events without emotion, describing the murder in disturbing detail. Hope, while admitting her involvement, claimed that she had been coerced by Melinda and Lori. As the details of Shanda's murder emerged, the public was, of course, horrified. The ages of both the victim and her attackers, ranging from just 12 to 17, added to the shock. It was hard to believe that a group of girls this young carried out a plan with this level of premeditation and brutality. It was not an impulsive act. It was a calculated and coordinated attack. The case against the four girls was quite strong thanks to Tony Lawrence's confession and the physical evidence recovered from the scene. Prosecutors decided to try all four girls as adults given the severity of their crimes. Melinda Loveless, identified as the ringleader, faced the harshest scrutiny. Her intense jealousy and manipulation of the others made her central to the prosecution's case. Melinda ended up accepting a plea deal in order to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to 60 years in prison. Lori Tackett, who played a significant role in Shanda's torture and murder, also took a plea deal and also received a 60-year sentence. Her attorney did point to a troubled upbringing and a fascination with violence as mitigating factors, but the court still held her fully accountable for her role in Shanda's death. Hope Rippey, who expressed remorse and claimed to have been pressured by Melinda and Lori, received a 50-year sentence, but that was actually later reduced to 35 years. Tony Lawrence, who had confessed to police and played a lesser role, was sentenced to 20 years and was released on parole first after serving just 9 years of that sentence. During sentencing, Shanda's mother, Jackie Vaught, delivered a heartbreaking statement saying, quote, "Shanda was a trusting, loving child who didn't deserve to have her life taken in such a cruel way," end quote. The courtroom was filled with tears as Jackie described the void that Shanda's death had left in the lives of her family. Shanda's family channeled their grief into advocacy. Jackie Vaught became a vocal advocate for victims' rights, sharing Shanda's story to raise awareness about the dangers of bullying and teenage violence. In 2012, 20 years after her daughter's murder, Jackie did something extraordinary. She met with Melinda Loveless as part of a restorative justice program. Jackie later said, quote, "I wanted her to see the pain she caused, but I also wanted her to know I forgave her," end quote. Her incredible and frankly unbelievable act of forgiveness made headlines and sparked conversations about healing and reconciliation. Today, despite their long sentences, all four of Shanda's killers have been released from prison. Their reintegration into society, as you can imagine, has been met with mixed reactions, with many feeling that justice wasn't fully served given the severity of their crime. For Shanda's family, the pain of losing her remains a constant presence, but they continue to focus on honoring her memory and spreading messages of compassion and prevention. The murder of Shanda Sharer remains one of the most disturbing cases of teenage violence in U.S. history. Schools and community organizations continue to share Shanda's story as a cautionary tale, emphasizing the need for empathy and conflict resolution among young people. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. It'll help more listeners find us. And be sure to join me tomorrow as we delve into another true crime event from that day in history. Take care of yourself, and more importantly, take care of others. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!